This is the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast with your host, Kevin Murray.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. On this episode, we have a guest that puts everything he's got into creating fantasy football content. Few people in the industry grind like he does. If you love fantasy football, you've probably seen him on Instagram and YouTube at some point. It's Smitty from the Fantasy Football Show.
How's it going,
Welcome in, my man. Yeah, welcome in. Everyone who loves fantasy football needs some Smitty in their life.
Yeah, that's the goal. That's been the goal from the beginning of the inception of what I do. You know, just trying to create a year-round fantasy football lifestyle. So
you're doing a great job at it.
I walk the walk. So, but yeah, I mean, look, it's a great job, a silly job in a way. But couldn't picture, doing something else. I honestly couldn't. I don't know what I do in the real world anymore.
Well, your passion clearly shows for sure. Everything you do content wise, it's for sure. It's pretty straightforward when it comes to seeing where your passion lies.
Thanks.
You put so much into your content, and I've enjoyed it for several years. Tell me about your background. Take me back to the beginning. When did you first discover fantasy football?
First time I discovered fantasy football, boy. I mean, this is dating me quite a bit. Essentially I took the wrong bus home in high school and got on a bus with a guy I'd had like PE with, and they'd talk football all the time. And, I didn't know much about it. I got on the bus, went the wrong direction. We got back to his house. It was May, I think, or something like that. And we just simulated Tecmo Bowl and did fantasy drafts. And we simulate the whole season. We were ahead of our game, or ahead of the time. And we'd throw in like $5, and we'd all throw in $5. Then we draft players and we simulate the season. And then, because they couldn't wait for football, which eventually I couldn't wait for football to begin. So we do all kinds of weird stuff in the off season. And that really, honestly, like, that was when I was a little kid. That really drove me into wanting year-round fantasy content, because I started getting so obsessed with fantasy football and the NFL during the off season part. And when you're a younger person, time goes slow. You start getting older, time goes fast. So January through August was like a lifetime. And so that really, from the beginning of everything I do, if I like look back or reflect back, it's from that drive of, what do I do in January to August? Why does nobody have anything about football out? Why does nobody have any year-round content? Why isn't there a fantasy football show, like a TV show, or anything that's year-round? I think somebody will consume it. People are as crazy as me. I know it. And that's the beginning of that I can remember anyway.
Yeah, that's a good story. So when did you first started creating fantasy football content?
About 2003, maybe 2002, 2003. I started guest hosting on an hour spot a week, or a show, depending on how many shows there were on what was, and I believe still is, the longest fantasy football radio show in the world. It was on NBC Sports Radio, it was on CBS Sports Radio. Bounce back and forth depending on the advertising like deal. But I started doing that about the same time I started creating actual content, put a site up. I got tired, like I said, of people not having year-round content. So I just took it upon myself to create what I believe to be the first trade calculator in the industry, and the first instant-based trade calculator and first instant draft simulator. So I did that in about 2003. And, I think people were probably trying to make those things, but nothing that was front side, customer facing, very easy to use. There were a couple players in the industry back then. We're talking about where you hand coded your website. There were no, Dreamweaver was barely out to even create a website. It was all HTML coding. It was, there was no password protection software or anything like that. It was crazy. It was like, hey, PayPal me, and then I'll give you a special link where you can view content that if you share, everybody else gets it for free. That's like what I'm talking about, like 2002, 2003. Just trying to innovate that's when I got into the content side of it. Like Matthew Berry was out for a little. I mean, I think he was. I don't know when he started creating content. I forget. He's told the story on my show before, but he was out for a little bit before I was, and Football Guys was out. There was, I think FF Today was there. There were a couple players, FF Toolbox. Those were, it was like us 15 content sites out, and that was it. And so, there's a lot of innovation to do. There's a lot of things to create. And that was like my desires to fill voids where is there not, what would I want? I want a trade calculator. There's no trade calculator. I want it instant based. I want to be able to just click a name and it says, don't do it, you idiot. And so I created it, and it would actually say, don't do this. This would be idiotic, or this would be pretty close. And I started having like different scales and different things like that weren't out there. That was my goal.
That's awesome. And you have a background education wise in journalism. Is that correct?
So yeah, I got my undergrad in psych. I got my master's in digital audience from Cronkite School of Journalism. So yeah, journalism college, and specializing in like digital audience creation and stuff like that. So, but I mean, while I guess I apply that every day, I don't use either degree, but I do use them on my show. I do a lot of psychology and fantasy football videos. I do a lot of trade negotiation techniques using like foot in the door phenomenon and psychology. Like for example, if I asked you, hey, Kevin, let's go to the NFL draft. I got tickets. I'll drive. I got a free hotel. They comp me every year. You want to go? And you're like, okay, sure. Then about a month later, I tell you, hey, the car's on the fritz. Do you mind driving? I'll pay for the gas. I got the tickets, the hotel. Yeah, it's okay. Then the next day, the next week, I come to you and tell you that I got hit hard at work or whatever, and I need to split the gas with you. And you're like, okay. And before you know it, I have you paying for half the trip. You're paying for half my trip. We're going to the NFL draft. And I've slowly put my foot in the door. But if I would have come to you in the beginning and said, hey, you want to come to Vegas, pay half the way, pay half the hotel, you might be like, no. So like that's like a small example of like psychology, foot in the door phenomenon, like things like that I try and like help people with trade negotiation. How do you plant a seed? How do you do this? How do you do that? Yeah. So it does help. And I do implement psychology type stuff into my content. But yeah, thank God I don't have to, like I said, go to the real world and use any of this.
Well, no, it's obviously an unconventional way to use your educational background, but it's great. I love it. I mean, it's a perfect application for sure. I'm sure it helps you in many ways that you probably don't even realize, right?
Yeah.
For me, I love sharing fantasy football resources with consumers. The fantasy football show is outstanding. I love every time I log on to Instagram or YouTube and run across something you're doing. Tell the listeners about what your schedule is like right now, everything you're doing with the fantasy football show.
Schedule. I mean, I'm live Monday through Friday, every single Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern. And I usually go, I mean, I don't even have a set time. Like it can go the other day, the show went 4.5 hours, but it depends on what's going on, how many people have questions, depends on if it's during the middle of the season. We take open phone lines the whole show. There's a lot of arguing going on. Honestly, I likened it to like the Howard Stern show. It's like not for some of the craziness that he does on the show, but in terms of like the callers and the regulars. And I don't think you can find a show out there that has like 5 to 15, I don't know, maybe 10 to 15 guys that the whole community knows when they call in, like, oh, this is Denny. He's, obliterated again on the phone line. Yeah, and then this guy and that guy. And then this, so we have, it's definitely a unique show that I don't think, anybody can replicate, even if they tried, which is awesome. And then that's the goal, create something original and bring something to the table that I feel like other people can't bring. The other thing too is like no one is going to outwork me. I don't say that in an arrogant way. I say that because I go live whenever news breaks. So if something happens right now, I'm jumping off and I'm going live even from this interview. Like that's my mindset. That's what my show is. So not only am I live 7 p.m. Eastern every single day, Monday through Friday. It doesn't matter if it's Christmas Day. It doesn't matter if like I literally go live Monday through Friday. I'm live pretty much every night at midnight on top of that, aside from maybe 1 or 2 days a week. So there's 2 shows a day that I'm live streaming, and sometimes each one of those can be 2 to 4 hours. So like I'll be live streaming those, and those are not days that we have a breaking news video. Like if Hopkins signed right now, I'd be going live on that show, and that has nothing to do with my midnight show. It has nothing to do with my 7 p.m. show. And so those are the kind of things that, that's my schedule. It's live whenever news breaks, live at midnight, pretty much almost every night, especially during the season. And then live at 7 p.m. Eastern. So it's like some days I'm live more than most 8-hour work days, and that's just the live part. That doesn't do with the business. That doesn't do with the content side of the fantasyfootballshow.com, which is basically what I started doing, was creating content. There was no video. There was no, podcasting. What was that website you would do to blog or to podcast? It was like Blog Talk Radio or whatever it was. Was that the name of it?
Blog Spot. Yeah. I can't recall. Yeah.
That was podcast. Like there was none of this stuff was, around. It was content only. It was message board forums. That was social media. You had a message board. How many people were on your message board? And that was it. Like that was when I started. That was social media.
Yeah.
And then, YouTube in about 2007, which is a whole nother story, because that was technically when I first did content in 2007. YouTube actually reached out to me to do a Sunday show, start bench show for YouTube. This is before Google bought them. And so every Sunday on the homepage, my show would be on the homepage. And that was the first time I ever did video. But doing video back then was so hard. It was complicated. And that was before Google acquired them. And so like my videos now like get more traffic than that video did on YouTube's homepage, because YouTube was very small in 2007 comparatively. So it sounds great, but it wasn't even like crazy amount of traffic. But I actually stopped doing video after that year, because it wasn't gaining any traction. It didn't really, surprisingly, I know it sounds crazy now. And honestly, if I could go back, I would continue from 2007 on. But, everything happens for a reason, and motivates you and changes you, and, creates what you do and what you are. But yeah, I didn't do any video content from 2007 until probably about, I did little videos here and there. I just did radio probably until I want to say like 4.5 years ago is when I started doing YouTube. So I, despite starting before anybody, there wasn't much of a market for it back then. And so I created video content for the first time regularly about I would say like 4.5 years ago. I don't even remember exactly when.
Yeah, I know that really sounds about right when it comes to when I recall you popping up in my on my feeds. So your weekly show, your daily show, that's live on YouTube and Instagram at the same time. That's right?
No, right now I have it only on YouTube.
Okay.
I have had them stream before, but I try and keep it exclusively on YouTube.
Okay.
I may have it going to Rumble and YouTube at some point, but right now, but every show can be found on Spotify. And I believe the first video fantasy sports show on Spotify for about 6 months to a year. And then now there are other video shows on there, but they reached out to me and said, hey, you want to be in this, beta testing group and get a fantasy football show out there on video. So I did that before they unrolled their video platform to everybody. And so every show is on there. Every single Spotify show is a video show. So there's at least like, I don't know, sometimes 2 to 6 hours of video, video content per day on Spotify. So that's on Spotify. But YouTube's my main bread and butter. And yeah, if you want daily content, that's where you want to be. But Instagram's more of like I'll put stuff up, clips of stuff, and be more interactive. I go live on Instagram a lot. I will be doing more of that, but that's more of like, I would say like a little bit of the behind the scenes feel, or
sure,
a little bit more of like my personality, whereas YouTube is the show. So I try and keep them all, different purpose, because I think that's what people like, to not just
Yeah.
be repeated from one platform to the next, So I try to have different personalities or different parts of the show on different platforms. And
Yeah, that's a good
TikTok,
strategy.
eventually, I hope to have like TikTok, having the studio live, but there's only so much I can try and maneuver at one time. So
Yeah,
I'm
I
a
believe it.
one man band.
Now, you have such a great community over there. You do such a great job incorporating your audience into the content. It's outstanding.
Thanks.
And
Yeah.
that's, I'm sure, a big part of your strategy behind building that community, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to do, but it's the one thing I probably do. One of the things I do best is build community, make people feel like this is where they can come. And usually when someone in the comments finds the show, a very good retention rate. Like when someone finds, it's just a matter of, there's big saturation in the industry now, where there's just so many content creators, and it's not that they're necessarily competing with you, because I think you only compete with yourself. Like I could care less that there are 100,000 new, shows trying to develop. The problem from a growing standpoint for anybody that's starting out and wants to get into it is that there's so many people in the way, even if they're bad matches for the person searching. They're like a fantasy football, and then they look at it, they're like, I don't like this one, I don't like that one, but you're now in the weeds, and then they got to try and find you. But good content will surface, and there are a lot of people that are creating, but you'll find very few people that consistently stick to it, and that can stick to it, that want to stick to it. That it goes back to the nobody will outgrind me thing. Is like, I live this. A lot of people do it on the side, and it wears them down. And it's not something like, I burned out at least 2 times during my career, and I've done this for over 2 decades now. So it's well over 20 years I've done this professionally. So, and I burned out twice. I burned out once in the very beginning, probably 4 years in. And I kind of think of it like, have you ever gone on a road trip with a bunch of buddies and it gets too long, and you're like your best friend, you're tired of, you're like, I just don't even want to, I don't even want to be around you anymore. But then like you push through a certain amount of time, and then they become like family, like you could go on a trip with family and you don't get tired of them like you would a friend or something. I feel like that's the way it was for fantasy for me, because you get to a point where you're treating it like this external thing. Now it's just a part of like who I am. There's no separation from it. And that's a bad thing, to be honest with you, because, I don't ever put my phone down. I try and I work on it, but like outside, I'm great in this room to everybody. Outside of this room, I often can be disappointing because I'm walking out late. There have been times where I come out of my show and everybody's asleep and no one's at dinner. I'm in some big trouble, but that comes with the territory. To do what I do the way that I do it, it takes a little bit of that rogue, workaholic mentality. And my family's very understanding. Like Matthew Berry, we both went through divorces in our lives, because we're so married to work, and it's who we are, and it's not going to change. It's not. Like that's something a lot of people won't say or admit or even follow through. And it's like, that's what makes a pioneer, or somebody doing something that nobody else is doing. That's part of what makes their makeup, is the workaholic, the person that I try my best to give back to my family, and I try my best to curb my how would you say, like my 24/7 fantasy football mind. But they do know that if news breaks, I walk out. Like I don't care where I'm at. Like I don't plan weddings during certain times of the year. I won't plan, any vacations during, like, they know this is, everything revolves around this. And that's just the way it is. And so, like with Matthew Berry, when he came on my show and talked about, in the early stages of his career, he became who he was, and it ended up like, you just end up not, like the Miss Smitty now understands me, met me in this state. This is who I am. She knows that I'm 365, 24/7 doing this. So, it's a much different like culture in my household than it was when I first started in this industry. But like a lot of people don't talk about that. They just think, oh, like work-life balance. Well, to do what I do, you kind of have to be all in. You can't really have this, oh, well, I can't go live right now, I'll get in trouble. And
Yeah.
that's one thing
Yeah.
that a lot of people, and it's fine. That's definitely something that I think works for some people, and I respect it, and I kind of envy it. But
Sure,
it's like,
sure.
it's not in me. It's not in me.
Well, your dedication, I mean, it's obvious. It pops through the screen. It's pretty clear that you are in it, all the way. That grind is real. That's, always been my impression of seeing you do your
Yeah, it's
thing.
not for
So,
everybody.
yeah.
It's not for
But
everybody. And a lot of people need work-life balance. Like, this is, I think I calculated one time, about a year ago. It's like 100 hours plus a week. It's crazy. The hours, the grind it's insane. Just like I said, the live stream hours alone, just the live stream hours, not production. And with live stream, you still have production, you still have tagging you got to do on the video. You still got to like optimize things. Sometimes you still have to work on all kinds of different things that go into it, like graphics and, prepping, doing Instagram posts every time I go live, putting the
yeah,
link onto it, putting that, like, all those things that go into pre-launching a show, then closing a show. And that's just live stream. But live stream only is like 8 hours a day, almost 6 to 8 hours a
yeah,
day. And that's nothing to do with the back end, the emails, like comments alone. People don't even realize, like, if you, and a lot of people don't comment, they don't respond to their comments. They don't, they don't want to, it's too hard. It's too taxing on them. But like, that alone is like 2 hours a day, like minimum.
yeah.
So there's so many parts of this that, like, and that's one reason why you also can't be somebody that plans everything out. Like even when you sent me the sheet of what to talk about, I
Sure,
don't
sure.
even look at that stuff. And now I appreciate you taking the time. I feel bad you spent that time, but
No,
like,
no
I
worries.
can't. That's not even in me to plan something.
Yeah,
I
that's only for you if you want it, right?
No, 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 right. And I
Yeah,
appreciate it, but I'm just saying, like, the way my mind works, I don't
yeah,
like script anything. I don't plan anything. I don't have, like, sheets or whatever. Cause I go live like instantly, and I can't
yeah,
really think like that. But that's how I have to live my life too. I think
yeah,
if I had everything planned out, my day wouldn't fly by. I wouldn't enjoy what I do. And I love the fact that, like, I don't even know what today's 7 p.m. show is going to be about. I have no
yeah.
clue yet.
It's awesome. That's
Yes. So,
great. No, I mean, that makes you you, and I love it. I love it. Nate, let's dive into some rapid fire questions. I'll just
okay.
rip off a question. Give me what comes to mind.
Okay.
What do you love most about fantasy sports?
Um, Man, that's tough. I mean, there's that again, that's hard to answer because I feel like there's so much that pulls me toward it. But I would just say, um, I love the creativity of what I do more than anything. I love the ability to take a topic and really talk about the way I want to, not just reporting on it. It's like opinion, it's predicting. I enjoy the beginning, the off season, more than I do the in season. Even if I'm hitting and landing stuff, I still enjoy the part where nobody knows. Like, you're saying that I'm saying Garrett Wilson could be number 3 out of all wide receivers this year. Nobody knows. And everyone can say it's crazy. Everyone can say it's not crazy. Doesn't matter. Nobody knows. This is the fun part, just debating it, talking about it, predicting it. Even if it comes true, this part's better to me. I love creating. That's probably the one thing I'd say.
That's cool. Now, you've had some awesome collaborations on your shows with other content creators and some obviously some big names. As you mentioned, Matthew Berry. How fun has that been?
Really good. Matthew Berry's been on a couple times. He's a really, really good guy, really good down to earth guy. He's definitely paved the way, especially for someone like me, who I've been in it like near as long as him, but I didn't do the video, content. So there's still a lot of paving to be done for even people that have been in the business for 10 plus years, 15 years, or about 14 years by the time I came into content creation, or video content creation. So, um, it was fun to watch him rise, and I like seeing him now get into a place where he feels a little bit more free to do what he's doing. I feel like he's getting a taste of what I get to do every day, is do what I want. and
Yeah,
he, at ESPN, he is such a, good thing for him, and he made such a big name for himself, but you can tell he's happy being in a place where it's not such a stringent, like, here's your one show. Like he can kind of do what he wants, and social media opening up to like where influencers have their own like account. It used to be when social media first got started, you had the company account. You didn't have a personal account. It wasn't
Yeah,
personal brand. Now when people can do personal branding while they work and build that up, and content's gotten crazy the last couple of years, and I can't imagine where it's going with AI and everything. It's going to be insane.
for sure, for sure. Now, I've spent some time with Matthew, and multiple times over the last several years, and he's always, he's always great. He's always, Matthew Berry. But I will say that this last year, his more, just so relaxed. He just seems like he's just living his best life. So that's
Yeah,
that's cool for
yeah.
sure.
It's and a lot of people think that's what I want to do, but like this is what I want, right where I'm at, like building what I've built here,
Yeah,
building what I've like. I don't. A lot of people say ESPN needs you, or like my fans will say that or whatever. But I don't want to do any of that. This is the only place I want to be. I want to be bigger than ESPN. That's my idea. My idea is not to work for somebody. My idea is to do kind of what Pat McAfee's done. He's built something very quickly,
yeah,
and the way the platforms are now with no gatekeepers, or you know you can have a bigger show on YouTube by far than any sort of, programming network. Doesn't like no one can stand in your way. Like in the olden days, you had to go through one of those media gatekeepers and you couldn't do anything. So when someone says that, I just, I just not anything close to what I would want to do. What I want to, if ESPN came to me and said, "Hey, you want to do an hour spot where I'm going on as a guest and therefore I'm, almost promoting my brand," like of course I would do something like that. But like my intention is never to leave what I'm doing to go work for someone. I did that before in the early stages, and definitely not for me, because
yeah,
I enjoyed the freedom. But to that point, I was trying to say that Matthew Berry, you can see a lot of that in him now, where he feels that way. He was brought into NBC Roto World as kind of like, you are the face. If we bring you back, we're bringing Roto World back, and you get to do kind of whatever you want. So I think for the first time, he's got a touch of freedom, creative freedom, and it's nice to see, because I know that feeling. So
yeah.
uh, great to see it in him. Probably the second most entertaining guest is Scott Hansen. He comes on once a year, and he's such a cool guy. Everybody loves Scott Hansen
Yeah.
from the Red Zone.
Yeah.
But he's awesome. He comes on all the time.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love seeing those episodes. So tell me about this Scott Fishbowl Las Vegas deal you got coming up.
Yeah, so I live stream once in a while. So I asked Scott Fish, I said, "Hey, why don't I live stream the live event, in Vegas? I'll go to Vegas and has anybody ever done that?" He said, "No." No one's ever live streamed an entire live draft before, or maybe even an entire draft before. I don't know if people have live streamed their drafts. Um, but he said to his knowledge, no one had even live streamed a full draft, but definitely no one's live streamed a live draft. So
Yeah.
I'm going to go out there to Stadium Swim. They've got a suite. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be, people can come in, and I don't know what the plan is for having a bunch of random people come in and do anything for the Scott Fish Bowl, because there's someone else organizing the Scott Fish Bowl part of it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be live. I'm going to be in like a table. I'm going to have, I've got a buddy of mine coming from another show that's going to hang out with me. And then we're going to have an empty chair, and just, it's going to say like, "Sit in me if you want to be on the live show."
I love it.
People are just going to come on, grab a mic and ask a fantasy question. Then we'll kick them out if they're boring or whatever, and get out of here. And then and cycle people on through. But it should be about a 4 to 6 hour live stream.
That's cool. That's cool.
Depending
Now
on,
are you gonna draft and live stream at the same time?
yeah, I'm in one of the
Yeah.
drafts live. I don't know if it's the first, second, or third draft. There's 3 of them. I'm not sure which one I'm in. My buddy that's coming, he's in one of them. I don't know if he's in mine or not. I haven't even looked, to be honest. So we're both drafting. I don't know. I think we might be in different drafts, and I don't know if I'll stream all 3 of the drafts or just those 2 or whatever. But there'll be a lot of Q&A. Any other experts that come down into that area, I'll try and bring them into the show, and just raise some money for charity, and
Yeah.
So it'll be fun, but it'll be on my YouTube channel. So anybody watching right now is not going to Vegas,
Yeah.
9, let's see, about I'd say I think noon Eastern until about, we'll just call it 5 p.m. Eastern. I'll be
Sounds good.
live
Yeah.
doing
Yeah. It
that.
sounds like a good time for sure. So, how many leagues are you playing in? How many leagues do you play in? Do you have leagues you've been playing in for a long time?
So I guess, like, taking best ball out of it, because best ball leagues, I do, you know, hundreds and hundreds, but that's awesome that now that you don't really have to count those. But I'd say I've cut back a lot. Like, here's the one thing about me is, when you do what I do, you're a pretty bad owner. Like, you can't play in. I played in 22 leagues last year, I think, that were outside of best ball. Like, I had to set lineups and pick up players, and like, I'm alive. Like, in the morning, the
Yeah.
whole, like, hour to 2 hours before kickoff on Sunday,
Yeah.
I'm live. So if Keenan Allen, pulls up limp in warmups, I'm like, I can't go into my 22 teams. Like, I can't go. I'm focused on my people. So, like, I had to cut back because I need to be able to know that I can locate one of those leagues. I need to know where those players are. I need to be able to. So I'm trying to do. I have like 4 or 5 follower dynasty leagues from the channel, subscriber leagues that I do. That I started a while ago. So I'm beholden to those. But uh, I would say I'm trying to cut down to about 4 actual leagues this year. And it's been tough because I've had to give a lot of people, like, hey, I can't be back this year. Hey, I can't. And sometimes it's hard to say no to those. I played in a league last year with Eckler and Darren Waller. And
Oh
so,
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's very easy for me to say yes to a charity league. Hey, yes to this league. But the bottom line is, like, there's at least 1 or 2 times during the season that, I don't even set a lineup or something. And I just, that's a horrible feeling when you can't get to those leagues and you're saying yes to this and you can't even, I've never not showed up to a draft though.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but like, you can't, it's too hard to. I got to the point where, like, I'm just too busy to even play in some of these leagues anymore. So, like, I'm
Yeah.
trying to keep this year. My goal is 4 to 5 that don't include those 4 or 5 dynasty leagues, and so that'll be a little more manageable. And that way I can, if push comes to shove, I can say, oh my God, I got that guy, and it just incorporate into my content. Like, we're trying to find him. I'll plug my phone in and show my audience me go to my lineup and switch Keenan Allen out or something, Whereas,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
22 leagues, I can't. I'd stop dead in my tracks creating content, be like on my phone, So 4 to 5 is the goal.
Nice, nice. So when it comes to actual football, what's your assessment on what's going on down there with the Cardinals this year?
Caleb Williams, I think, is probably the hope, but I know we just signed Kyler Murray to a big contract, which I think was a mistake, and I did not want it. The fan base did not want it as a whole, to be honest. The Cardinal fan base is not pro Kyler. There are some, and there are people that just love the team no matter what, or people that think they love the team no matter what. But Arizona's a strange state because nobody's, like, really from here. Everybody just retires here. We have a lot of people from Canada, from Chicago, a lot of colder places that migrate to Arizona. So we have a weird fan base anyway. They're kind of fickle with every sport, depending on if they're winning, because they didn't really necessarily grow up, a fan or
Yeah.
live in Arizona their whole life. So we have a weird fan base, but the fan base is definitely not behind Kyler as a whole, I would say. And if the Cardinals have an opportunity to trade him, and I think he will have trade value for sure, and they get the number 1 overall pick, I think they're looking at Caleb Williams. But we'll see what happens. I mean, Kyler's still, a potential young up and coming quarterback. He still can improve, but he's got, work ethic problems and headspace problems, and he's just not somebody I'm really excited about right now. But I could get behind him, if he straightens out a little bit and gets healthy.
Yeah, I mean, they're obviously going to have quite a bit of draft capital. I mean, they could have the top 2 picks in the draft, potentially, right?
Yeah, yeah. And what I would do if it was me, I'd either crash and burn the franchise within 2 years or turn it into a Super Bowl contender. That's my extreme nature. But I would figure out a way to get Caleb and Marvin Harrison Jr.
Oh,
on the same roster and get it done. Like whether that's trading
yeah.
Kyler, future first rounders, whatever I got to do to get, the 1 and 2 pick. And look at the, the Texans. Look how, close that could have been this year,
Yeah.
So I definitely feel like it's not that crazy, especially if they get the 1 or 2 or 3 pick, out of the hat. Then,
Yeah.
trading Kyler and future first rounders for that 1 might not be the hardest thing in the world. But I definitely would change up what's going on. I definitely would have considered taking Anthony Richardson. That would have been my objective as a Cardinals GM or decision maker, because I don't believe in Kyler. And it's not that I don't believe in his size and, to Bryce Young's, defense. Like, I don't think it's necessarily about that. I think Kyler proved you can play at his size. It's more his mentality. It's his, doesn't even mingle with the team.
Yeah.
He's not a real good locker room leader. I don't think he wants to be hit. I think he would quit and play baseball if he could. And so all those things drive me nuts.
Yeah.
Kyler's
Yeah.
not.
He's unique. Yeah, for sure. So name a quarterback that you will likely come away with in most of your drafts this year.
Joe Burrow and Fields, probably. Those are the steals of 2023 quarterback drafting, because Burrow belongs in the second round where Hurts and Mahomes and Josh Allen are going, and he's going around 4. So that's the biggest steal of the draft. And that was probably one of my biggest predictions last year when he was going in like round 5, 6, 7, depending on what type of draft you're in. And Jalen Hurts as well. Those are like 2 of the big breakouts. And I think Fields is going to explode from 5th round value, just absolutely annihilate it. I believe Fields and Burrow will both play at the same level, same tier all season long with Hurts and Mahomes and Josh Allen. So getting both those guys in the 4th and 5th round are win a league, moves.
I love it. I love it. Name 2 running backs that you'll likely come away with in most of your fantasy drafts.
Bijan and Gibbs, the 2 rookies. I think rookie running backs produce very well, and these guys are special, and they're in special situations too. Like with Atlanta being like the 2nd best run team in the league last year, behind only Philly with Jalen Hurts. Big reason why they're the number 1 running potential team in the league, and they did it with Algier. Like, what do people think is going to happen with Bijan? Behind that line now. So he's going to average over 5 yards a carry. He's going to have, I think he'll lead the league in rushing yards and attempts and be in the top 3 in touchdowns. And I think he's the number 1 running back in fantasy football.
That's awesome. How about 2 wide receivers that you're targeting or that you'll likely come away with in most of your drafts?
Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, London, Christian Watson. Name a
Nice.
few.
Yeah.
But I think Garrett Wilson is probably the one guy I would want more than anybody. But I think he's gonna dance in the 1 to 3 all year. I think, like, if I close my eyes and picture the top 3, Wilson's in it, and maybe he's 3rd behind JJ and Chase. But I definitely would not draft him as high as I'm predicting. But like, he is a guy that I think is going to take a huge step forward. What he did last year is unbelievable. 1,100 yards. The fact that he, did that with a rotating quarterback of madness and chaos is crazy. So to get Aaron Rodgers, who is the king of fast tracking a wide receiver and turning them into an elite player. And I always tell people, and people argue with me all the time, that I'm not saying Devontae Adams isn't good. I'm not saying Devontae Adams wouldn't have become like a version of what he is today, but he wouldn't have been exactly who he is today if it wasn't for Aaron Rodgers. You look at the track record of what Aaron Rodgers does and how he produces talent and how he fast tracks them. Christian Watson was brought along very quickly, making huge mistakes, getting hurt, dropping passes, looking awful in the beginning of the year. Aaron Rodgers screaming and yelling at him in the beginning of the season, looked like he hated his guts. And by the end of the year, they're like best buddies. And Watson's looking like a phenom in a certain portion of the season. I don't think there's another wide receiver that produced like he did in that 4-game stretch. So Watson's another one that in the 4th round, you're just hitting a home run. I mean, this could be a top 6 to 10 guy.
And you think Jordan Love can do the job?
Yeah. One thing that's telling with Jordan Love is when Jair Alexander goes to bat for you and doesn't just, it's not like he's at the podium and they say, "Hey, how do you like, Jordan Love?" "Oh, he's our quarterback. He'll be fine." No,
Yeah.
he's like getting him in a headlock, like sticking his head in front of an interview where Jordan Love's doing an interview and goes, "This is the best quarterback in the NFL." And no one thinks he's the best quarterback in the NFL. Like, I'm not suggesting that is an
Yeah.
accurate statement, but when Jair Alexander says that and he's like literally best buddies with him, and he gets to go up against him in practice, like he's
Yeah.
going to obviously improve by doing that. But Alexander also knows his capabilities at this point, right? He's not batting blind telling us that Jordan Love's good without knowing it. He knows it.
Yeah.
And if anybody gets the benefit of the doubt, having picking the next quarterback that's going to be there for a decade, I think it's the Green Bay Packers. They've had two quarterbacks since 1992, 1993,
Yeah.
which is crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
think of how many quarterbacks everybody else sees roll through their team. They've had two quarterbacks. So like they get the benefit of the doubt. I know it's not something that just happens time and time again, but Jordan Love, they're enamored with him. We saw him on the field in a very short amount of time last year, in about a half. But in that half, he looked good. He looked precise. He connected on a long touchdown with Christian Watson. So I mean, like everything's looking good. And to have that defense talking about him as if he's, and again, not saying they're right, but saying he's the best quarterback in the league, or Dobbs saying he's, no different than Aaron Rodgers. They're clearly seeing this guy. And I'm not saying to trust those vaulty expectations, but Alexander literally like being playful in front of cameras and like putting his, rep on the line, so to speak, is speaks volumes to me about what he's seen. I don't think he would do any of that if he's not seeing greatness, like potentially,
Yeah.
given the situation.
Yeah, for sure. Now you've been known to hit on some tight end rankings in the past. Who name a tight end that you're targeting, or someone that you think you'll come away with in drafts?
Dalton Kincaid, the closest thing I think we will see to a new elite number one. Like, is he a lock to be the next Kelsey? Hard to like say something like that, and especially hard to get somebody to, get behind a statement like that, because Kelsey's, you can't. It's almost unfair to compare player to player. But when Jimmy Graham was Jimmy Graham, who was going to be next Jimmy Graham? When it was Gronk, who was going to be next Gronk? Tony Gonzalez, who was going to be the next Tony Gonzalez? Like, it's going to happen. Somebody's going to come along. Is it Kyle Pitts? He's already on the map. Is it Hawkinson? Probably not. I think Hawkinson's good. I think he's going to be 3 to 5, 3 to 6. Some think it'll just be handed, the torch will be handed to Andrews, but he's not like a spring chicken. But and Kelsey might last for another year or two. I don't know how much longer than that. Everybody drops off, and at some point, the guy's had a long career with no injuries, and the tight end position is very aggressive to your body. Look at Gronk. Look at all the short careers. Kittle's going to have a very short career. I don't think Kittle lasts for like 4 more years. I think he might have 1 or 2 more years left, and he said that himself. He said that it's an abusive position, and so you look at someone like Dalton Kincaid, who has the elite skill set because this draft class, and he's atop of it. Him and Mayer were the 2 top tight ends, but Kincaid to a lot of people was the number 1 before the draft. He has the skill set, so much so that they're calling this the best tight end class ever, and he's atop of it. So there's the pedigree and everything right there. But name a tight end that has landed in a better situation with that pedigree. Is like, you look at Kelsey, like that's the only comparable you have. Kyle Pitts went to a very good landing spot, in my opinion, long term in Atlanta, but Ritter's not, Ritter sounds like a disease, not an elite quarterback. So he's got the Ritter. Nobody else has a quarterback like Mahomes or Josh Allen.
Yeah.
So you put talent with quarterback and situation, and a kind of unfolding, Stephon Diggs situation too. Like, and he's turning 30 in November. And it used to be receivers could play at 32, 33 elite. Now it's like 30, 31. So someone's going to take over as the immediate pass catcher. And when you say something like Diggs made Josh Allen, or Josh Allen made Diggs, and you start having that argument, Mahomes is doing Mahomes-like thing still without Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
If Kincaid works out, Kincaid will be Josh Allen's Travis Kelce. You know, I truly
Yeah.
believe he's got that ability and upside, and he's going to be a cheat code because this guy's going to play slot wide receiver. He's not even, when someone says, what about Dawson Knox? I don't even know what they're talking about because Dawson Knox is playing like an entirely different role. He's a blocking tight end. They can both be on the field at the same time. Not saying Dawson Knox won't catch 4 touchdowns and break off in the middle of a blocking assignment and catch a touchdown in the corner of the end zone. I'm not saying he won't be used, but Kincaid will literally potentially be replacing the Bills' number 2 wide receiver role. And if he's getting wide receiver 2 numbers from the slot and moving all around the field, we might be looking at one of the most remarkable rookie seasons for a tight end that we've ever seen. And so I'm all in on Kincaid. He's double-digit round tight end. You typically draft him with a tight end you plan to start ahead of him initially, like a Cole Kmet. I really, really like this year with Fields taking that big step forward and DJ Moore stretching the defense. Cole Kmet's going to be open all the time. So I'll take Cole Kmet and Kincaid and then wait on Kincaid, be patient with Kincaid. And think about last year when, like, Kenneth Walker was one of my biggest bold predictions last year, and people cut him. They drafted him. They spent all the time. They understood the assignment. You know, you told him the assignment, be patient with him. He's got the hernia. He's not going to be back. You know he's not going to be there for week 1. And people just, I got to get a kicker. I got to get a backup team. Just cut the guy. Insane. Yeah. That's what's going to happen with Dalton Kincaid. If he doesn't pop off in week 1, people are going to give up on him. They're going to cut him in redraft. And I'm going to be doing a waiver wire show about how in the hell is he available in 40% of leagues, walking into week 2 or something like that. So that's my guy.
He should definitely have a strong second half of the season, get the reps in. And I love that. It's great advice. And hey, man, few people know the independent grind of fantasy football content creation like you. Can you give some advice to aspiring fantasy football analysts that are looking to get more involved in the industry?
I used to always have this like list of things I would say, and it's like anymore, you just got to do it. There's nothing else you can say to somebody. Like I could tell you, James Cameron says when someone says, how do I become a director? He says, pick up a camera, film something. I don't care if it's your family members, and put director on it. Now you're a director. Are you a good director? I don't know. Will you ever become something? I don't know. But it's the same thing. Like I used to tell people, get it to do this, do that. And now it's like, I almost feel like you're wasting your breath because you either have it or you don't. And even if you have it, the ability to grind and do something, especially on the side, because no one's going to it takes years to get into a position. Very few people do this professionally. Like even a lot of people you see on like Fantasy Pros or Football Guys or wherever, the biggest platforms around, they don't necessarily do it full time. To do it full time, it takes a whole different mindset, a different business skill set, a different whatever. So like from a business perspective, I won't even like go there because it's not what people think it is. And you have to really be an entrepreneur and know what you're doing and have multiple streams of income that cover you during the seasonal, shift that happens in fantasy football. But so being professional at it full time is a whole different ballgame. But getting into the industry, if it's just you want it to be a passion, you want it to be a side gig, you just got to do it. If you don't do it, you won't know. And if you don't do it and you're good at least coming, to the table with the content and, delivering, then you got to actually have something that people want to consume. And I can't decide that for people either. So you have to literally just do. If you don't do, you'll never know. And that's the only thing that I would tell anybody, because everything else is just like planning in advance. It's like planning for week 17 matchups when you got to get to the championship before you can, start planning for week 17. I think it's a very similar concept, like to plan out how you're going to do this or, what you got to do or how do I get into it? You just got to see if you can even do it, and in social media today, you can create an account and create content and see if people are responsive to it. And if you're even good at it, just right there on social media, It used to be you need a website or whatever, and people would just, or video skills. And, the pandemic definitely opened up the door to people's courage and curiosity to get on camera and have their kitchen sink behind them and people are scared to death to do that. Now they're not. And that's created definitely created a saturation. So it's even harder to get into the industry ever before. And so it can be daunting, and, the odds are extremely against you, but you're only competing with yourself, so it just depends on, if you have it or not, and if it's a passion of yours.
I love it. Great advice. Well, Smitty, is there anything we haven't covered that you'd like to share before we close things out today?
No, just, if you're interested, I'll be live at 7 p.m. Eastern every day.
I love it. Where can listeners find you?
YouTube.com/The Fantasy Football Show. Or you can go to Smitty1.com for all my links and socials and stuff. But yeah, I mean, YouTube.com/The Fantasy Football Show, or just type in thefantasyfootballshow.com and you'll find everything, either one. But that's the easiest way to find me.
For sure. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this episode. Can't wait to see what's on the agenda for you in 2023.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. Until next time, be sure to follow and subscribe to all of FFU's social media accounts for daily content.